Thank you for joining us today for Meritorious Mentor Connect presented by Magpul Industries. A little bit about the company. Magpul was founded in 1999 with the idea of developing a simple product to aid in the handling of rifle magazines under stress. The company name comes from this original product named the Magpul. Over the last 2 decades, Magpul has grown significantly, but still follows the same mission and processes, focusing on innovation, simplicity, and efficiency. Their product lines now include hundreds of firearms accessories plus other gear, and all have been designed to professional use standards. Magpul now makes more than 400 unique products with hundreds of different variants, including magazines, stocks, slings, sights, grips, bipods, organization and storage solutions, knives, my favorite, eyewear, and a lot more dependable hard-use gear. So today it is my pleasure to welcome Scott Creed, Director of Marketing at Magpul Industries. Originally from Beaufort, South Carolina, Scott graduated from the United States Naval Academy in 1991 and trained to become an F-18D weapons and sensors officer in the Marine Corps. He retired in 2015 as a colonel and joined Capital One as a finance and operations manager in external affairs, their corporate philanthropy division. He was eventually selected to lead the business intelligence office for the cloud migration team. In 2017, he was asked to grow and develop the Magpul Marketing team in Austin, Texas, where he currently resides. His team is responsible for Magpul's marketing, communication, and e-commerce efforts. Please join me in welcoming Scott Creed. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Excellent. Well, first of all, I want to say it's a great opportunity to be able to do this. So for everybody who's on, I retired 7 years ago, and I'm not sure this kind of capability was around. I know there was definitely some mentorship opportunities that were going online, but this is starting to hit a lot of steam, and I think Meritorious is doing great work here. So great to be here. Magpul is especially happy to sponsor this event, and I want to say thank you to Meritorious and Catherine for letting us do this. Joining me today, and we'll be talking later, is Jim Thomas, the most recent hire to the Magpul Marketing team and an Army veteran. So you'll hear a little bit from an old guy's point of view as well as a not so old guy's point of view. Real quick about myself, I've got a few minutes to try to introduce who I am and what we're going to do here in mentoring, give you a little bit of what you're going to have to be thinking about if you're getting ready to transition from a variety of things in your life. As Catherine said, I was raised in Beaufort, South Carolina as the son of a Marine and an English teacher, and I wanted to be a marine biologist. But after Top Gun came out, I wanted to be somebody who flew, so that's what I ended up doing. I went to the Naval Academy. I studied English there and all the other things that you do at the Service Academy. It ended up being an F-18 Wizzo, and I was stationed on the East Coast and the West Coast, did all the usual things, the deployments, the combat tours, and eventually said, this has been great, but I think I want to retire and open a brewery. So back in about 2010, 2011, got my plans together for transitioning out of the Marine Corps. And back then you had a class, you had about 3 or 4 days that they talked to you, and then you were on your way. I had set up a business plan to run a brewery and was getting ready to press execute with my wife's permission. And then I got selected for colonel. So didn't want to turn that down. So I decided to stick around. But because in my mind, I had already been going through this transition process, I wanted to keep up with doing that. So while I was going towards promotion, I continued to do the things that I thought would help me on the backside. I did a lot of research, learned about networking, did a whole lot of things I'll talk about in just a second. But at the end of the day, I fell into this process that I had never heard about as a Marine. And if you're here, you're in this process. The fact that you're even coming to this event is a good sign, because one of the very first things you can do when you're getting ready to get out, whether it's a year from now, a month from now, or 6, 7 years from now, is start networking, start finding mentors, start talking to these folks, and learning what they went through, learn what they have to give to you. So going back to about that 2012, 2013 timeframe, decided not to do the brewery because they were popping up all over my house. And I ended up deciding that I'm going to stay in the Virginia area, and I'm going to go ahead and try to find a big company that I can be proud to work for. Didn't want to be a government contractor. So I ended up working over the course of the next couple of years, looking at some large companies like Capital One, Amazon, and a few others. And at the end of the day, I was offered a role at Capital One, Went in there, was enjoying that life. It's a great company. I have nothing bad to say about it. And I was selected inside the company to move around a little bit, which was also great because I got to see things more from a tech perspective, also from a philanthropy perspective. And then eventually, somebody over at Magpul reached out to me. I knew them very vaguely at the time, but after a series of conversations in about a year, they asked me to come down to Austin, which is where I live now. So that's the quick down and dirty on me. I will tell you that I went through the 7 steps of grief or the 12 steps of grief when I was transitioning, as did my family. And what I basically started writing down these processes. I took a lot of notes. And ever since then, I have been mentoring and talking to folks who are close to transition, whether that's someone who did one tour or someone who did a whole career like I did, because there's different steps you might have to follow, and there's different mentalities that would occur if you are a retiree versus someone who's a first tour person. So I would say if you are first tour folks, you're probably going to find this a little easier to do than some old guy like me, but the process is still the same. So I'm going to talk about that process here real quick, if that's all right. The main thing, starting with the transition, is defining what it is you're transitioning to. You got to do that both internally and with your family and with your friends, and start figuring out what do you want to be doing 5 years from now. Somebody told me early on, you better have a 5-year plan that you can actually work towards, or else everything you're going to do is going to be rudderless. And that's what I did. So put down my 5-year plan, go to a big Fortune 500 company, learn about corporate America. I knew nothing about it, never had any finance or business background, and Capital One was my choice. So I started laying out a pathway to this company. I started learning about the company, and I started doing those things that you have to do, which includes learning how to network, going to a lot of networking events and talking to a lot of people, both my peers as well as people in the professional world from a variety of industries. I started building that resume. I got my MBA back in 2002. I was fortunate to be able to do that. And that allowed me to at least understand what a resume was. But I would say that when you start working that resume, you're going to have to put everything down on paper. You're going to have to translate that into plain English, and then you're going to have to be able to custom make your resume for whoever you're talking to. So I created a big 5-page document that had everything I felt that was great. I showed it to other people. They told me of a few other things I should put in there. And then every time I had a new conversation, I created a new 1-page resume and I handed that to folks. So over the course of 3 years, I had a lot of conversations, probably 200 or 300 conversations with people in different industries while I was working a full-time job. That meant my wife and family missed out on some time on the weekends. There was a lot of coffee on the weekends and sometimes at night, a lot of phone calls at night. But I would tell you, if you invest early and you figure out what direction you want to go in, it'll be worth it in the long haul, because you won't be rudderless when you finally hit that date. So when you do get out, whether it's retirement or EAS, there's a date that comes to you, and it's a very singular point in your life, because that's the date when you're on your own. Up to then, wherever your battalion or squadron has been telling you to go is where you've gone. Now you're going to be the master of this domain. So really important to involve your family members, such as a spouse and kids. I had their support. I frustrated them after missing a lot of things. But at the end of the day, things did work out, and it was because of investing all this time and energy into this transition. So I would also say that if you're thinking of picking a place to go live, understand before you do anything, you're choosing to not go work at about 99% of the companies that exist out there. And that's because 99% of the companies aren't where you're planning to go. And unless there's a lot of remote work available, you might be putting yourself into a place where you're going to be stuck only looking at where you're going to be living for opportunities. I know a lot of us like culture from being in the military. We know what command climate is. So I wanted to find a place that had good culture, a place that took care of its people. That was really important to me, coming out of a whole career being in the Marine Corps. Not every country or company has great culture, so I was looking for that. I also wanted to be a leader if possible. I was willing to not be a leader if that's what it took. I found that when you are in the interviewing process, a lot of companies don't know what leadership is. You have to actually get inside the company, be a leader, and for them to recognize that. You can't judge leadership when you're in an interview. It's just not a very tangible thing, despite the fact that everybody in this phone call understands good leaders and bad leaders based on their military career. So those are the key points I want to talk about. I don't want to take too much time on it, but welcome to the mentoring session. I mentioned early on, find a mentor, find multiple mentors, be willing to sit down and listen to them, take great notes. You might learn one or two things from a mentor. You might learn 10. The more you do this, the more things you're going to hear that are about the same or very much the same, but you'll always take something good out of a conversation. I still mentor folks, and I'm still in contact with people that I've been mentoring over the last decade. So it is not, like Catherine mentioned, it's a long-term game. It's a marathon. So welcome to this. Hopefully this isn't your first time talking to a mentor of any type, but I wish you best of luck out there, and let's get this mentoring thing going.